So I'd like to call to order the Tuesday, January 11, 2022 meeting of the Evanston Preservation Commission. We do have a quorum of, I think it's 8 commissioners out of 9. As the first matter of business, we need to suspend the rules to permit virtual participation. Would someone like to make a motion to waive the rules and permit remote participation?
I move to waive the rules to allow virtual participation.
I'll
And a
second it.
And Stuart, a second. All right, then we need to do a roll call vote. Commissioner Reinhold,
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen,
Aye.
Commissioner Baudin,
Aye.
Commissioner Klein,
Aye.
Commissioner Morris,
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobs,
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. All right, so for any applicants who have not appeared before the commission before, so our procedure is that each applicant, when it's their turn, should introduce themselves. Everyone who speaks should state their name for the record so that it's on the videotape. The representative of the applicant should then present their materials. You're welcome to guide Cade through your materials and ask them to turn pages so that you can fully explain your application to the commission. While I think we've all prepared and read the materials, still it really helps to have a clear verbal explanation and have the materials presented. We'll then have questions by commissioners. If there is any, I don't think there's any members of the public who are speaking tonight, but we'll ask any final discussion by commissioners and then a roll call vote. So the first matter is 1615 Judson Avenue, a landmark home in the Lakeshore Historic District. Who will be presenting? Are the applicants or their representatives here?
I did see them in the meeting. They might just be muted. Yeah, Kristen is in the meeting.
She doesn't have her video on. Kristen, can you hear us? Give it another minute and then we'll go to the second application first. There she is.
Hi, I can't hear everyone.
Can you hear now?
Can anyone hear me?
Yes.
We can hear
Yes.
you.
I can't hear anyone. If you could hold on a moment.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you now. Yes. So I missed everything that you said before that. Sorry about that.
All right, so introduce yourself and then you'll need to present the materials. While we've read them, you should definitely explain them fully. You can direct Cade through the materials as to which page you want us to see.
Sure.
And please proceed.
Sure. Hi, I'm Kristen Fogarty of Object Architecture. Tonight I am presenting you the project at 1615 Judson Avenue. It's a single family home. The project is to renovate the second floor, and with that there are some modifications to the exterior of the building. So starting with this first page, the modification that we are looking to do is to add windows, which is on the next page. So this is the existing elevation. These are photographs showing the one on the left is the rear of the house. So I want to modify the existing windows there, which are windows from 1997. And then on the right, there is an area where we'd like to add windows. So if you go to the next page. So in the area where we'd like to add window A, this is because there is an existing stairwell there, and the window right next to it to the left currently is the only window in the stair hall, and we are adding a laundry room there, so that will no longer add natural light to the stairwell. So to keep having natural light in the stairwell, I propose to add a new window at the stairwell. Window B at the rear of the home is to be replaced with a new window. It's basically in the same location of the existing, but it has just slight modifications to it. So it will be 2 casement windows next to each other. And then also there is an existing flat roof. That addition was added in 1997, and we'd like to turn that into a roof deck. So I propose to add a small, very delicate metal railing to act as a guardrail, because the existing parapet is only 2 feet tall. And you can move on to the next one. And so this is a detail of window A and window B. And this is the rear elevation, which is the east elevation. And here, I would like to reconfigure all the windows at this back portion. This was an addition added in 1997, and the interior floor plan is changing. So to do that, I am proposing to rearrange the windows and add a patio door, which is window C, and then also a bay window at window D, because the new floor plan needed a little extra room at the primary bathroom. The new roof would be overlaid over the existing roof. And these are the details of those windows. And then this is the south elevation. So at the south elevation, there are existing windows at the south east corner that we are eliminating because of the new floor plan. So that area will get wood paneling to infill that. So it carries the same detail, it just has the windows removed. And then adding new windows for the new primary bedroom at the side there. So if you flip to the next page. So this is where the new window is being proposed to add. It has a similar configuration to other windows on the home, and it will have the same exterior details of the existing windows. And that's the detail of the window. And then these are images of the existing home. So we have the front elevation, so you can see what the existing windows look like. The rear elevation, so you can see the windows that were added in 1997, also shown at the interior. And then also at the second floor, it shows the existing original double hung window, as well as the windows, an interior shot of the windows at the rear of the house that are proposed to be changed. And this is the floor plan showing the changes to the home. So if you look at the second floor where the work is being proposed, that shows at the stairwell, you can see the laundry room being added and taking up where the existing window was that added a natural light to the stairwell. So that's why I'm proposing the window there. And then if you move to the rear of the home, you can see the new layout for the primary suite and the window configurations there. So you've got those along the back as well as at the south elevation for the primary bedroom.
Okay, anything else you'd like to present?
No, that's okay. Thank you.
Okay, questions from the commission?
Hi, Kristen. Whose windows are you using for the new windows?
The new windows will be Marvin, the Ultimate Series windows.
Okay,
So they are a wood clad window. So they will be aluminum clad on the exterior, matching the existing color of the existing windows on the home, and wood on the interior.
okay.
And another question about materials. You said that up on the second floor, you're going to be adding a little 2-foot railing at have that low roof by the parapet. Is there already a metal railing on the house already, or is the railing down below wood, or what kind of materials are already there?
So currently there is not a railing because the flat portion of the roof is not accessible right now, but we want to make it accessible. And so to not make changes to the existing parapet, which carries that detail on it. Again, this was an addition added in 1997. Within the area behind the parapet, we are going to add a guardrail for life and safety.
Got it. But then down like right underneath that roof, I think there's some railing down at the first floor level, right? So I was just wondering what materials those are.
So looking at the rear elevation on this page, it's the middle photo here. You can see, you know, I believe that is metal railing there, but I'm not certain because actually I haven't stood in the backyard because we were doing work to the second floor.
What about the railing at the front of the house in the west elevation? What
The
does that
railing at the front of
look
the
like?
house. Yeah, the railing at the front of the house is actually an enclosed railing here. You can
Oh.
see in the front. Oh, up there. I'm sorry. That is
Yeah.
wood. That is painted wood.
So you're really making an open railing like the one on the balcony at the front of the house? What's the profile of the balusters? Are they on the front and then the one you're proposing?
The ones at the front are square and I'm proposing square in the back, but I'm proposing that it is made out of metal and it's painted a dark color. So you don't see it. It really goes away.
Why would it be bad to see it if you see the one at the front of the house?
Because that way we don't change the look of the back of the house, how it currently exists.
Okay.
And it's also only for part of the deck. So I didn't want to run it around the entire deck because we are doing a green roof at the southern portion of the deck.
As to the new kind of vertical window in the stairwell, just from looking at the drawing, I was having a hard time figuring out how the divisions are related. I mean, are they how they related to the other windows? I mean, you can't tell just by looking.
Sure. So the mutton style is to match the muttons that are on many of the first floor windows. So you can see on this particular elevation in the first floor, there are casement windows with transoms, and then there are transom windows at the back there that have a mutton configuration on them. And then if you go to the south elevation and the east elevation, the rear elevation, those all have muttons on them. And so because all the special windows had muttons on them, I wanted to carry that same style into the stairwell.
Okay, but in reality, you're matching the choices that were made for the 1997 edition and putting a divided light windows next to, go back to the elevation that shows the stair window, if you had that one. Yeah, you're putting those next to kind of larger scale double hung windows. I wonder if you ever thought about doing something, whether they're casement or double hungs, that would look like a stack of two double hung windows, that is to have a single division at the center.
So if we go to the south elevation, I was actually inspired by the original wood windows that are existing on the home for the southern bay. If we get there. So you can see on this elevation here, there's this bay of triple windows here. And because they are special, I wanted to match that special detail. Also in the living room section, and I'm sorry, there's not that on the elevation, but you can see in this photo here, there's these upper windows more towards the front. So that's in the living room. And then on the front of the building, there are doors with mutton configuration in them. And so because you can see the stairwell at the same time, I thought it would be lovely to see those all together.
I mean, do we know that the windows that we're looking at in the south elevation are original to the house?
Yes, they are.
Or were they part of the 1920, was it around 1920 that the house was redone from Italianate to Queen Anne?
I am not certain of that. I am only aware of the 1997 edition because I have drawings from the original architect.
Because
Yeah.
I think there
Carl, I
were-
think that was from the 1890s.
Oh,
And
okay.
then you can see this rear volume. This was an addition that was done back here, I believe, in the 1920s.
My experience of things like this is you would have had a consistency throughout the older part of the house. That is the redo in, when was it? Close to the turn of the century. And then sometime in the teens or 20s, typically porches were enclosed with casement windows, which were frequently divided light. So the existing conditions that we're faced with are divided light or double hung, which leads me to the question if we could go to the rear elevation, Cade. So while I think the elevation is a great improvement over this, the three-part division and the scale of the windows that are there, the question is, why are the casements not divided light casements? Or why are they not double hung windows? Because they're in the scale and proportion of the double hung windows in the gable end, above, or in the rest of the house. I know sorting out design questions like this is always a difficult issue for the designer, but I'm just wondering about what happens even though you subdivide it further with the undivided pieces of glass in terms of relating to the scale of all the other windows in the house.
Sure. Well, I was keeping in kind with the fact that a majority of the windows on the second floor don't have divided lights. So I really was going with that. My concern with making them double hungs is obviously the function, and certainly we could make them look like double hungs and they still act as casements. These windows are shorter than the double hungs in the rest of the second floor. So the second floor has very tall double hungs. So my concern was that they just proportionally didn't make it look as tall as perhaps the other windows.
Well, the height to width ratio, the proportion seems of your new window seems very similar to what's occurring in other places in the house. Just a thought. By the way, my compliments on the replanning of the second floor.
Oh, thank
I think
you.
the master suite, bathroom, and closets are very skillfully done.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that.
I have a question. Did you consider, instead of doing one big double hung window on the north elevation, maybe doing, instead of, I think Commissioner Cohen suggested a stack of double hungs, but what about a triple hung window? You know, so that it could be a tall, the same vertical opening, but, you know, so it looked like 3 divisions.
Sure. Yeah, I did not consider that. As I mentioned before, I was really inspired by the bay that's on the first floor and carrying out that detail, because the stairwell is such a beautifully crafted stair. It has all the original wood and railing details. I just felt carrying out that detail of the muttons would look really beautiful matched with the interiors.
Yeah, it also seems like you've been careful about the alignment of both the heads of the windows and the mold between the 2 units. Looks like it's very close to being at the level of the sill, or perhaps is.
Yeah, because I very much wanted it to feel in kind with the windows next door, but because it isn't a stairwell, oftentimes you do find that's where that special window is, such as a stained glass window or something different and special in a stairwell.
I've forgotten the plan, but could you actually physically widen those so they were the same width and height as the windows immediately to the left?
Yes.
If you've got the space, I think that would be nice, because then you would read the composition both horizontally with 3 windows and then vertically in the stack.
Yes. Yes, that is possible to do that.
I mean, stuff like that obviously is up to you as the designer.
It looks like the head of that stairwell window is up just a couple inches higher than the adjacent ones?
No, the plan is that the heads of the windows do align so that that exterior trim does align.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know that I want to make it a condition, but I mean, to relate that window to windows that are, on the south elevation seems, I mean, it's just pretty remote, and it's just, it's so proximate to the windows that, have start at the same place and are immediately next to it, and basically it's twice as big as. But I mean, I vote to approve without you changing it, but I guess I would hope you'd at least consider that.
Sure, yes.
I'd like you to look at horizontal divisions in the new windows in the master bathroom as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mark, I think this is something that, could just be handled administratively with any changes or amendments that Kirsten wants to make.
Okay, are we content to limit it to asking the applicant to consider rather than requiring changes to the divisions?
How do people feel about that?
I'm
I am
fine with
okay
having
with-
it for consideration.
I agree. Consideration would be, I'd find acceptable.
I agree with that too.
I agree.
Okay. All right. Is there any further discussion by anyone? Would someone like to make a motion to approve? Anyone?
I can do it. Are we going to put in the motion words to that effect about the horizontal meeting rail in on the bathroom windows?
I think
on
on
the stair windows, something about the stair windows as well. And if so, how do you do that as part of a motion, Mark?
just that we request that the applicant consider those changes and, seek administrative approval. But just use the word consider, I'd say.
Well, then I'm still confused about what the motion would contain, and I think other people must be as well. That's why you didn't have a rush of people wanting to make the motion. So if we're approving it, then we've approved it as it's submitted and are just suggesting to Kirsten that she look at them, and it would imply that she doesn't have to come back for any kind of a re-review, even if it's just Cade and Carlos. I mean, maybe we need Cade and Carlos's help to clarify how this would work.
I think if the applicant's going to change the design, they do need to come back to just,
Okay.
Just kind of register the final plans, basically.
But what you suggested leaves that at their discretion.
Yes, I mean, that's what I think the consensus of the commission was, to just ask them to consider as part of the motion.
Okay. Then, John, I guess you should just make a straight motion to issue a certificate of appropriateness.
Okay, so just one other question then, before I do that, if the any potential changes that occur are at the applicant's discretion, do we want to go a little bit heavier and approve this conditional on Cade and Carlos's review and okay of very specific changes that we want to happen and not an option?
John, you're making the motion. You can make it any way you want.
If I may clarify a little bit, John, I think that if you make a motion to approve with the recommendation for the architect to revisit some of the discussion in terms of the windows, as long as the architect does not deviate from what was discussed, I think we can do it administratively.
Okay.
Yeah, so does he have to say that in the motion though? So consider.
It will be
those changes.
We will
and if-
clarify that any changes that may occur are part of the discussion in the meeting. So if the architect comes with something different, then it would not be part of what you discussed. So I feel more comfortable with something that you give the architect options to consider, and she seems to be in agreement with that. So she may or may not come back with those revisions.
Yes, but if she's considering them, but if she changes them, specifying that she can just show those administratively to just get the final. She doesn't have. to come
In my
back to the commission.
experience,
The
My
only problem
experience
I have
was-
with that is the motion would then have a positive incentive for the architect to not make any changes and just move ahead and apply, move ahead with the design, do the construction drawings and apply
That's
for.
how I feel. That's why I think it should just be subject to those changes but still to be done administratively.
Okay, but I'm sorry, John. I thought the consensus was that we would ask the applicant to consider those changes rather than requiring them.
Well, that's where we're at. We're either going to say it's at the applicant's discretion or we're going to require it.
I think about 5 people said they would. I mean, I haven't heard anybody said they would. Does anybody think we should require it?
I'm just going to read the
I don't feel that the design is terrible and inappropriate. And, if we were going through the standards, I think that I would only suggest that it doesn't meet one that has to do with the scale because of the division of the windows. And what we've suggested or are making optional is a reconsideration of the division of some of the windows, not all of them, but some of them.
Okay.
So I'm hearing the consensus is that we want to approve this with a recommendation, not a requirement. And I'm going to read it now.
Great.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion regarding 1615 Judson Avenue landmark in the Lakeshore Historic District. Case 22 Pres-0002. Kristen Fogarty E, architect, submits for a certificate of appropriateness to alter the structure's fenestrations at the north, south, and east elevations, alter the structure's east elevation roof line at a new second-story rear bay, and construct a new railing and rooftop deck atop the existing rear volume single-story addition. Applicable standards, alteration 1 through 10, construction 3, 7, 8, and 12, and with the recommendation that the applicant consider adding a horizontal meeting rail on the second floor bath windows and review the proportions of those windows to be more in line with the existing 2-story double hungs, and revisit the stairwell window.
Perfect. Thank you. A second?
Second,
Okay. Roll call vote. Commissioner Reinhold,
aye.
Commissioner Cohen,
Aye.
Commissioner Bodan,
Aye.
Commissioner Klein,
Aye.
Commissioner Morris,
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobs,
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Aye.
Thought I heard somebody else vote there, and I'm an.
Bark your reply.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
The next matter is 3312 Dartmouth Place, a landmark home. I see the architect.
Hello, everyone. Omar Gutierrez, architect.
Please present your application.
Sure. We are doing a couple of things to the home that will affect the elevations, the north and east elevation. The north elevation is the front elevation, and the east elevation abuts a 16-foot gravel alley. So if you turn to maybe the first page, the site plan, the existing site plan, to get everybody situated. There is a rather awkward driveway right at the corner, or the northeast corner of the lot, that is at the corner of the alley and Dartmouth Place, that leads to a garage, an existing attached garage. The owners wish to convert that garage to living space, and instead of having the one-car garage attached, they want a slightly larger detached garage on the southeast corner of the house, accessible from the alley. We believe would be an improvement on the street, since we wouldn't have this corner driveway there. They would increase the living space that they have. This would the small garage attached would be used as a small family room. And of course, we're trying to keep everything in keeping with the architecture of the home. If we go to the second page, we'll see that we are taking out the curb cut and bringing back the curb, and keeping part of the existing driveway as a small patio accessible from the newly built family room instead of the attached garage. And on the southeast corner of the lot, we see a 22.42 by 13.38 detached garage that has a small apron and is accessible only from the alley. If we go to the next page, is just the existing plan showing two windows in the existing garage that we're removing, and we're actually going to mimic those windows as a series of pairs. There will be 4 of them. And there's also a small section of the wall that we're removing between the existing living room and the garage so that we can access that internally. And the overhead door, which is a wood door, is being replaced with aluminum clad wood doors. And then this is the proposed plan of the family room. The windows on the east side of that family room, again, that would mimic the existing pair, will be rather high for privacy. And then there's a pair of windows and side lights on the north end leading to the small patio where the existing paver driveway is. And then this is the detached garage that will be in the southeast corner of the home, of the lot, sorry. And then this is existing on top and proposed elevations in the bottom, showing some new light fixtures that we're going to put on either side of the existing opening. The existing opening is exactly 7 foot tall, so we're going to use 6'8" standard height doors with a small built up floor, since the existing concrete floor is not level. So we're going to have to build it up. And that way we can step down 1 step into this space. There will be lots of light. There is some vegetation and some fencing that exists there that will remain. That will provide some of the privacy that my clients would need there. And if we go to the next elevations, this would be the east elevation. On the top, you see the pair of windows that we are removing. They're also in bad shape. And we're replacing with a series of similar windows that march along the family room. This is the view from the alley. This is only visible from the alley. And there is a big fence. I don't know if you have the pictures loaded, Kate, but there's a tall 6 foot fence that marches along this entire elevation all the way up to the door that you see, which leads to the kitchen. So most of all these things won't be very readily visible, especially in the summer, but of course we're trying to be sensible to the architecture of the home. And then this is the detached garage. We are matching the roof pitch. We're matching the materials in the home. We're making it scaled down compared to the home. So to establish a hierarchy, that this is a accessory structure to the main home. And matching, again, pitch, like I mentioned, that instead of doing vertical siding, which is mostly what exists in the home, we are proposing horizontal siding to kind of accentuate the horizontality of the whole composition. Do we have the 3D models, Kate, that we could present?
Yeah,
Or
they're in here.
I could share my screen too.
They're in here. Let me.
Oh, here's the window details. If you go back to, there you go.
You want me to go
So
back?
this is, yeah, maybe just to the window details, because
Yeah.
these are the, oh, sorry, these are the existing ones. They're very, very simple wood windows. They are all wood right now. There is a precedent in the home in other areas of the home where the woods are clad, the windows are clad. We don't know if they're original or not. They don't look very new at all. So it's possible originally these windows were just a lower grade or just a different type. They're atypical in the home. All the other ones are clad. And then the new window, we look at the profiles being very, very similar in thickness and appearance. I'm talking 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 inch difference here and there, but they're very, very similar. And the proportions are very much the same as well. So you see on the left, the pairs of windows marching along. They match the height of the opening towards the front where the French doors are. This is, so the what you see on the left will be the only change visible from the front of the house. And then here on the right, we see the detached garage in relation to the home. And this is situated exactly as we're proposing it, so we can tell that we're matching the roof pitches, some of the proportions, and just the language of the home. This is a view from the alley. And then some aerials kind of show a little bit more of the context. This is a home built in 1940. It was designed by George Fred Keck. I believe is one of the first, or if not the first, modern home in the city of Evanston. That is the overhead door that we're replacing, where the numbers are. This is the kitchen door accessible from the alley, and this is what you see in the alley. You see that big fence that really obstructs the view quite a bit. This is the area where the garage is proposed. I think that concludes my presentation. If you guys have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion?
I have a couple questions real quick. First off, I wanted to compliment you on the number of pictures and your 3D models. It made it very easy to understand your application. So
Welcome.
we appreciate that. Thank you. I guess a couple quick questions are, the first one is the alignment of the sill for the new windows in your, where the existing garage was.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about the reasoning of, I know that you were aligning the top of those new windows with your new doors around the corner. Is there a reason why the sill of those new windows doesn't align with the existing windows that are adjacent?
We could do that. It would just change the proportion of the windows that are there, which are squares. That was the only reason we're trying to both keep the proportions of the windows that we are replacing with the alignment of the new doors. So that's why we brought them up slightly.
If you were to drop both the sill and the head, I guess it would mean that you drop the head on the doors as well. The doors are standard height. Are they 8-foot doors?
The door has 6'8" doors with
6'8". So
correct.
that's
The opening is 7 feet. So, and we need about 4 inches to level the floor.
yeah. So the question is what to align with what?
Correct.
Did you consider replacing the glass block, or is that a unique feature? Considered a unique feature of Keck's houses?
You know, I don't know, but I know it is original. Going back in pictures from the home, it is present. It is something that is
Yeah.
there. It's actually, and the glass block is in the kitchen, actually.
Yeah, I assumed as
A little
much.
different space.
But I
Yeah,
mean,
it's in a
you've
different
gone to
space.
great care to alter the one window so it's the same as your row of 3 smaller windows, which I think is a nice decision to make. And then you get this anomaly where the kitchen windowsill drops down and you've got a sort of funny condition with the vertical siding above it where it actually has to pop up over the new window. You know, I mean, I knew George Fred Keck and Bill Keck, and I don't think he'd mind if you cleaned stuff up a bit. It would, you know, only go to help his reputation or further enhance it.
Sure. You know, there's something we could do here too, and we could go either way. We could take all these windows and bring them down to match the sill height, and we'll be within an inch of the top of those windows where the siding currently ends. So we could easily match that. They just wouldn't match the height of the front facing doors, which we felt it would be a nice thing to do.
Well,
Especially
it's always nice to align heads of windows and heads of doors, but in this case, I mean, maybe it would be more important to have all of those windows read as a band or almost a ribbon window.
Correct. So the glass blocks are 6 by 6, so they're 24 inches tall, with plus a small, probably a brick mold or something. It would be virtually the same height. So we could easily bring it down. I believe it's 2.5 courses of bricks. We're talking less than 8 inches. We would still get the desired effect in the inside because it would be higher windows. And then all the tops and sills could align. That's something we could easily do.
Yeah, that would be my preference there. I have a question for you, and I'm assuming that it's a budgetary decision since the bulk of the house is brick and you're doing the garage in wood rather than a brick veneer. Was that because of the client's budget as a decision?
It's actually because of the space. So we need to have a certain distance between the home and the garage, 10 feet. And by the time you add the veneer, you end up with a rather narrow.
You're adding,
garage.
I know you're adding 4 inches to, are you really up against the setbacks to the point where
it's that close, Stuart. They actually round up. We have to use the rounding rules in the code to make it compliant.
All right. Well, that's a good answer. Thank you.
But we are trying to bring in some of the materials that we see in the home.
Yeah. Well, the materials are curious all by themselves because you get panels. You get panels of vertical siding, and then the pieces that project up above the roof are shingled.
Correct. There's some sort of like a wide shingle in running bond pattern, and then of course the painted brick everywhere.
Yeah.
So we're using horizontal siding to match the exposure of the existing wood siding that's in the house.
Okay. And it'll be painted, I assume, to
correct
harmonize with the thing. Okay. Nice job.
I had another quick question, and I may have been mistaken. I thought I saw a note that the garage window was going to be a fiberglass window as opposed to the wood aluminum clad. Is that still the proposed option you want to do there?
The garage window, we would like to do that because they face the west side. They really would not be visible from any elevation, only from the yard. We could change that to a clad wood window, to aluminum clad wood window. These are the 2 windows in question. But for budgetary reasons, we thought maybe there we just go with fiberglass.
I think because, in my opinion, and I don't know what my fellow commissioners would say, but I think since it's a landmark building and we're already changing some of the materiality of the horizontal siding, I think it would be good to try to maintain those windows to be similar
Okay.
to what you're putting, if that's something that you definitely would consider. And I think the other thing, it's probably minor and it's not something I necessarily require, but would it be possible to maybe match the pattern of the original garage door with the new door? Just to kind of pull that rhythm through. I know it's really minimal, but
That's a possibility. I don't see why not.
if there could be a consideration to maybe just pick something that's similar to that, I don't think, in my opinion, that would be a requirement in my mind, but it might be nice to have something that you just suggest is similar to the
Yeah,
original pattern.
We could definitely source that. It's a pretty simple detailing. It's like square sticking panels. you
Yeah,
know,
I
so
figure
we
the
could
square
definitely find-
patterns too kind of helps with like some of the other stuff. So it's not something that is something I think that it needs to be carried in emotion. It would just be something for consideration.
Okay.
I have a question. Kate, could you go to the back facade where the new doors have been added? Just to the elevation drawing. Oh. Keep going. Yeah, that one. The what does it say? Proposed front north elevation. What I'm sort of wondering about is the doors where you show the swing and you show them swinging in. The frame of the door is shown at the same thickness as the adjacent side lights. And is much thinner than the stile and rail that's shown on the existing older door. And I'm wondering if that was a sliding door, I would understand the graphics, but won't you have to have enough style there to put hardware in? Is that just a graphic issue?
I think it is. I think it is. You are correct. The style there will be a little bit thicker than I'm showing.
So it'll look very much like the door on the right-hand side of that elevation, although that looks it looks like it's drawn at about 3 inches.
Correct.
And I think to center a lock set based on back set of modern hardware, you need at least 4.5 inches. So I don't know, but it's not an issue with the design for me. I just wanted to ask about it.
Yeah, I think it is a graphics issue. The styles are going to be a little bit thicker.
Is there any other discussion? All right, and so it's, I guess in terms of a motion to approve, it seemed as if we want, I mean, I think the easy change was the it changed out the fiberglass window in the garage to a wood clad window. And then the one that was maybe a little more subjective was the placement of the line of windows on the west elevation, whether we were going to ask that those be more aligned with the glass block window. Was that something we were going to require?
Before we make that decision, what will happen to the height of the French doors around the corner if you lower those alley side windows?
Well, we can't drop the floor because we need to build it up. And if we wanted to align that, it would require a custom door. But more importantly, this is the existing opening already of the overhead door. So that was kind of the determining factor, that is there's an existing opening that we're going to work within. So they may not line up. It's one of those things. Which one do you line up? The doors or the glass block window? And we thought the door is actually a more prominent thing. That corner it might be the more prominent angle than just the side elevation, which is obscured by vegetation and a fence and is only visible from an alley. Whereas this is visible from the street.
I'm happy to leave that at your discretion.
I think it makes sense. I mean, now that we've heard the reasoning behind it, I think with the door being a fixed position and being an existing opening, I'd be okay with leaving it how they propose it.
I agree. Because then you have a more primary elevation and view lining up.
I feel
agree. I
similarly.
think, I'm gonna say, I think it'd be successful either way. So I'm happy with it aligning with the door or dropping down to align with the sills.
The other
Anybody?
consideration, admittedly, was that from the inside, the windows and the door will align as well.
Yeah, important.
I did want to ask about the siding decision on the garage. I assume that that is in our jurisdiction to say whether or not it could be horizontal or vertical. And there's so many materials here that I am concerned about adding another direction.
Well, the other issue for me is that if you did do it vertical, you could basically detail it so you wouldn't need the corner boards, which is a totally
Actually,
new design element.
Yeah, to his credit, Stuart and John, they originally proposed a vertical siding, and I think, probably myself and Carlos convinced him to go a little bit of a different route. I personally felt like it competed a little bit with the house, but he did propose vertical siding originally.
I wanted to point something else out. What you see there on the side by the corners is actually not a corner board. It's a dash line showing the thickness of the actual wall. We're proposing miter edges, which is just a cleaner, sleeker look.
Good for you. I'm looking at this on a laptop screen, which is the way I reviewed it the other day, and I read it as a corner board.
If you're able to zoom in, you'll see that it's a dash line. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Good.
If I may,
The shingles on those upper portions of wall, those are just asphalt shingles, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
There are some sort of oversized running bond asphalt shingles. It's rather strange. I've never seen it before.
Yeah.
if I may, can everybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so to add to what Kate's response was to John, because the house is mainly brick and the original design had the vertical, I thought it's not brick. So I thought that
We're losing you,
Carlos, we can't hear you.
I hear you.
No, I think we understand why you and Kate suggested the horizontal siding. I may have missed it. Is the horizontal siding the exposed width of the face the same as the width of the vertical siding? Because I think that would be a nice way to visually help tie those together a little bit.
Actually, it is not.
I think the exposure is the same as the brick.
It's the same as the brick. Is not the same. It's the exposure on the vertical siding is 6 inches. I may have misspoken. Sorry about that. The exposure on the siding is closely matching the brick.
The brick.
exposure. Correct.
So 3 3 5/8 or thereabouts. I don't know how I feel about that, but certainly not a deal breaker.
right, John, are you okay with it?
Yeah, I am. Carlos, you broke up, but we got the gist of what you were saying there, that it was so it would harmonize more with the horizontality of the brick coursing, which I
Right.
get. And vertical might look more like I don't know, a ski chalet or something like that. So I think I see the reasoning behind that, and I don't have a problem with it.
Thank you.
Gee, if you had a big budget, you could do siding like wood siding like at Mount Vernon. You could take the horizontal boards and put vertical V grooves in them and put them up as if they were in fact coursed masonry.
Crazy.
Well, we clearly have too much time tonight, so why don't we,
Somebody should make a motion.
yeah, I think the one aspect that we were going to ask to be modified is then just the
Final
window
window.
in the garage. Was somebody, I think John made the first motion. Would somebody like to make the second motion?
Kate, if you'll put everything up on the screen, I'll make a motion.
Should be there now. Do you see it?
Oh, okay. Yeah, I do. Okay. I move that we issue a certificate of occupancy for window changes to the existing structure at 3312 Dartmouth Place and the construction of a new wood frame garage, applicable standards 1 through 10 and construction 1 through 5, 7, 8, and 10 through 14. And that we require that the vinyl window in the garage be replaced with a wood clad window to match the windows being used on the as replacement windows in the house, or not replacement windows, sorry, as new windows in the house.
Before you make a second, I think Stuart meant to say certificate of appropriateness, not occupancy.
Oh, what did I say? Sorry.
Yes.
Occupancy.
Certificate of, occupancy. Yeah, that's getting ahead of the game. A certificate of appropriateness.
We figured it would be corrected in the official record.
I'll second that.
Hey,
Thank you, Carl. All right, roll call vote. Commissioner Reinhold,
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen,
aye.
Commissioner Bodan,
Aye.
Commissioner Klein,
Aye.
Commissioner Morris,
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobs,
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan.
Aye.
I'm an aye. Thank you. It was an excellent presentation.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's see. We do have minutes for approval. I did not receive any comments on these.
Kate, can I just ask about these minutes? Have you
Mhm.
received anything on the administrative review for the 2514 Harrison or the 1115 Hinman projects?
Yeah, I just received both of those this past week, I think.
Okay. I
And
assume it's within these minutes, like these minutes were clear enough that they were able to.
yeah, they both made the appropriate changes. The one on Harrison just came through.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right. So I guess we need a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes for December 7th, 2021.
That's second. I guess we need a roll call vote. Commissioner Reinhold,
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen,
Aye.
Commissioner Bodan. Beth?
Where'd Beth go?
Aye.
Oh.
Okay, I think you're muted.
Aye.
Commissioner Klein has to abstain
Right.
not being here. Commissioner Morris?
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobs?
Aye.
And Aleka, were you here?
No, I abstain too.
Okay, and I will vote aye. All right, so Kate, I'll turn the meeting over to you.
Sure. The next thing I guess we should do is we should elect the officers for the 2022 year. And we had 3 members who graciously accepted nominations. So Commissioner Reinhold as chair, Stuart as vice chair, and Beth as secretary. And I think we can do something similar, Mark, as last year where we just voted on the slate of electors since there's no opposition.
Okay, so we'll just do a yes or no vote.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, all right, so I'll do a roll call vote to elect the 3 individuals so nominated. Commissioner Reinhold,
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen,
Aye.
Commissioner Bodan,
Aye.
Commissioner Klein,
Aye.
Commissioner Morris,
Aye.
Commissioner Jacobs,
Aye.
Commissioner Sullivan,
I thank you for taking this on. Excellent group of people.
and I'm an aye.
And next I'll turn this over to Carlos. Design
Thank you,
guidelines.
Kate. Can you hear me?
You're breaking up a little bit.
Sorry about that. First of all, I want to thank Mark's leadership for the last year.
Carlos, we can't really hear you well.
Congratulate. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Carlos, why don't you try calling in on your phone?
I'll do that.
You sound like Darth Vader.
Yeah, it's a little scary. Well, he dials in. I do want to. I think he said it. Maybe you heard it, but I do really want to just give a lot of credit to you, Mark. I have been extremely impressed with your ability to chair and deal with really complex cases. It's certainly not always easy, but you have a way of making it look easy. So I'm very glad that you'll still be with us for a year. I learn a lot from you.
For like 10 months, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was thinking the other day that the commission's lucky to have a great cadre of people to step in and who at this point have really a lot of experience and are ready to go. So I'm sure that the new officers will do a terrific job, and it'll be good to have a different way of doing things and some different points of view.
Can you hear me now better?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry about that. Anyway, I think Kate expressed our appreciation for Mark and congratulating the new officers for 2022. Thank you for accepting your nominations. So the next item on the agenda is the draft 2 of the design guidelines, and I had the opportunity to have some conversations over the internet with Stuart, particularly about the guidelines and the text that you see. Basically, this is sort of the beginning of the text that will be included, hopefully, for the design guidelines. And I basically did a lot of research to see other communities, how they treat the design guidelines, just to have a feeling of what most communities do. And basically, I'm trying to make ours to reflect what Evanston is all about, get some of the pointers from other communities. And at the same time, I asked Stuart and Julie and Jamie to give us some input about the way it's been developed. I think one of the things I want to discuss a little bit is that we do have the 2019 design guidelines that were published online. And when we read about those more carefully, there are actually procedural guidelines. So the intent of this guideline is to complement the standards for review, so there will be no confusion what the standards for review are and versus what the guidelines are, in the sense that the standards for review is the the goal that you want to achieve, whereas the guidelines are the means that you get to achieve those goals. So I haven't had the opportunity to include at least one of the comments that Stuart sent to me. It had to do with the aspect of appeals, where the clarification that he was proposing is that when an applicant does not agree to make any alterations, then if the commission has to make a decision to deny, that basically they were given the opportunity to review their project, but the applicant did not choose to do that. Other than that, I don't know if the commission members have other comments. We will continue working with Stuart and Julie and Jamie with this. And basically what I'm trying to do is that put everything that I think is relevant, and over time, we're gonna start to either remove or add things that would be more appropriate to the document. And this will be basically something that anyone can search online, and it will be not just one large document, it would be divided by sections, so somebody could go directly to the section that deals with guidelines for alteration, or a section that deals with additions or construction. So that's the way I'm envisioning this. And I wanted to make it very much local, not necessarily just addressing or going to the Secretary of Interior's standards for historic preservation, but that these guidelines will be showing examples in Evanston and trying to make it local. So that's what I like to just give you an overview of everything, unless you have any comments about anything you read on this document.
I have one question. I was wondering if any consideration was taken for relaxed design regulations for properties that are listed for cultural reasons and not for architectural significance, and how the design guidelines would be applied to a structure or building that was listed for cultural reasons.
I think the guidelines would basically talk about maintaining the characters of the buildings. So if you have a building that is culturally significant, it's not just per se architectural significance, we would not ask them to make it architectural significance. We would maintain the character of the building in terms of material, design, scale, proportions, and things like that. So we're not trying to make something that is not. But at the same time, we want to recognize those landmarks that are landmarks for what they are, but whether architecturally significant or the architect himself, or those buildings that are culturally or historically significant. So we're not changing that. And I think the guidelines will reflect that.
All right, thank you.
Guidelines, yeah, I think I would tend to agree with Carlos. I think the guidelines for alteration are at least in one architectural view of the world and one set of theoretical positions, good guidelines for how to make an addition to anything, whether it's a landmark piece of architecture or not.
That's right. So again, we are looking at this as a tool for the owner, architect, contractor to be able to understand what the intent is of the ordinance, which is maintaining the character of the buildings. And the standards are there for a reason, but in order to get there, you need to follow these guidelines in order to get there. So this is the means to get to meeting the standards for review.
It seems to me, and I would have to go back and read it again, but based on my memory of having read this a couple of days ago, that there still is some overlap and redundancy that would leave somebody reading this quickly wondering what the difference between standards and guidelines are. I think your definition was a nice one, but then I think, for instance, the guidelines simply should say, in considering, in considering how you alter or add on to a building, please refer to the criteria by which it will be judged, which are the standards for alteration. rather than reiterating the standards for alteration as part of the guidelines.
Well, again, the reason why they're here is because we wanted to provide the applicant what the standards are, but then we're going to dedicate a whole new section about the guidelines, how the guidelines actually help you to get to the standards. So we're not going to repeat the standards as guidelines. Those are that's the end, that's not the way to get there. But I think that if people know clearly that the standards are different from the guidelines in terms of what they mean, I think we try to make it easier for them that way. But I do appreciate the fact that you don't want to make sure, we want to make sure that there's no confusion or misunderstanding what the guidelines are all about, what the standards are all about. We'll work it through the process as we write the document.
You know, I mean, your title says historic design guidelines. So I think it's easy to confuse what you mean by guidelines with the standards. The guidelines should, in fact, be an outline of how to proceed. First do this, first do that, and then look at these criteria.
Again, we will give you more text for you to look at, and I think that gives us an opportunity to get there so we can discuss it more in detail.
Okay.
As a group of professionals looking at these guidelines and standards.
Because the guidelines are to assist in the interpretation of, to assist the applicant in the interpretation of the standards, or how to
That's
apply.
right. Yeah. Yeah, correct. Yeah, I mean, the way I was always explained it is that guidelines are preferred treatment types that if they're followed inherently meet the standards. So they take a little bit of the subjectivity out of the standards.
Yeah, so maybe just in the intro, instead of relative to the standards, you know, be a little clearer that, you know, we're providing these guidelines to assist the applicant in the interpretation of the standards.
Yeah, I tend to be at times very literal about things. And if the people who are going to these pages on the city's website are homeowners who want to alter their home, or architects who have been employed by homeowners who are asking them to do that, then I think what the guidelines should be is a very simple and very direct discussion of what is required of somebody applying for a certificate of occupancy, rather than a theoretical discussion.
Well,
Again, we're not trying to do
Mark
that.
is smiling.
Again, Stuart, we're not trying to do that. That's not
Okay.
intent.
Okay, good. Glad to hear that.
Okay, any other comments for us to take away for the meeting so that we can proceed? And again, this is not a formula we're using. We're trying to kind of understand what Evanston is all about. You know, I'm spending time going through the neighborhoods, looking at the homes, reading a lot of the documentation we currently have with the Lakeshore Historic District Survey, and also the landmarks that we have a document for each. So I'm really trying to make sure that people have the feeling that this is about Evanston, not the National Register.
Right.
All right, unless there's no more questions or suggestions, that's all I have to report for at this time. Thank you.
I have kind of an related but unrelated question, which is, and I may have missed this in one of the other meetings, but at what point will people be able to go online and get a copy of all, you know, of their homes? Oh my God, I'm blanking. The listing for their home. I mean, in the Lakefront Historic District.
Survey sheet?
Survey
It's
sheet,
there.
thank you.
Isn't that there now?
Lakefront Historic District survey sheets you can access, but I don't think any of the other ones you can you? Or
You
am I
can,
wrong?
you can access the landmarks outside of districts. That report is available. The other districts don't have survey sheets in the same way. So that, I mean, that's something that we should look at through the certified local government program. We should look at resurveying those districts in the future so that we have something more similar to the Lakeshore District, which is really somewhat of a standard that we should try to follow. It's really well done.
Kate, do we have enough information that it would be possible for anyone who owns a house or is buying a house in Evanston to go online, put in the address, and see immediately whether it's landmark, contributing structure in a landmark district, or no designation and no requirements?
Yeah,
I
so
mean, you should be able to find that for any address, any residential address in the city of Evanston.
you can, and it's also, I think it's either the first or the second thing on the historic preservation page. The only thing that you can't find that you just talked about was contributing versus non-contributing. But our code doesn't draw a distinction between the two anyway.
Kate, is that information contained in the city's GIS mapping function also?
Yeah, that's really the root of it, is the GIS, and then it's kind of compartmentalized into a public portal called, I think it's called the Citizen Portal. And that's kind of a abridged version of the full GIS mapping layers that like Carlos and I have access to. But it's relatively easy to pull that up, or About My Place, not Citizen Portal, sorry, About My Place. And yeah, it's relatively easy to just navigate to. There's a section on, yeah, I think it's called like historic status or something. And it either says landmark, yes, no, local district, and then it would say either no or list which one. And it also has federal designation.
Then we've got all that information available now.
Correct, it is, yeah. And we've actually, we've had a decent amount of success with the homeowner welcome letter that was developed in this last year, and putting information on the website that they can reach out to us for information on their home. We've had a lot of realtors that reach out, both for historic information on the home itself, as well as a lot of questions about process involved with the binding review.
Sounds like what's up there is working well, which is why I suggested that maybe you and Carlos want to begin by looking at it and saying what's not here and what should we add, rather than redoing the guidelines completely.
Yeah, and I
Again,
think that's a good point.
Yeah, but again, Stuart, we're not redoing the guidelines. There's no guidelines per se. Right now, there are standards for review and a procedural guideline. That's what it is right there, mostly. And there is a section that deals with guidelines, which I alluded earlier in our communication, that we can easily plug in the guidelines to expand what it is.
Okay, I don't want to extend this as a protracted discussion, but I mean, I think the great usefulness of anything online is that guidelines should in fact be, as you said, procedural guidelines. Here's what you have to do.
Correct.
I wonder if that term guidelines is a little too heavy, and if there was a little bit softer word that suggested more of the how-to recommendations of this, and not a steadfast rule of which the standards are.
Yeah, the only issue with that, John, is that the terminology design guidelines is what's referenced in the ordinance. And so for this to have any real impact, I think that you need to follow that language. It's also relatively like just standard terminology across the profession that we should probably stick with.
Another thing, John, is that the commission to the ordinance has binding review. So there's not recommendations that you're making unless you make recommendation after you decide to approve or deny something. So I appreciate the intent of that, but I think that the language, once they read it, they will understand that we're trying to give options rather than stop from, creating quality projects that will address the standards at the end through the guidelines.
Okay.
I wonder too, based on this conversation, if something that may be beneficial is to, and maybe we can look up and distribute some examples that are a little more divergent. And maybe there's a municipality that does it the way that we're more comfortable with. I'm just kind of thinking out loud. I used to have an old boss of mine that used to say it was really important to do R&D, and you're thinking like research and development, but he would stand for rip off and duplicate. So it's, you don't have to reinvent the wheel necessarily. There's a lot of really good examples that have been done that are out there, and there's examples that are really strict, and there's examples that aren't, and provide a lot more room for creativity and in finding different solutions that meet the standards in the same way. I don't know if that would be worthwhile.
Didn't Carlos, I mean, we've already seen a couple of those that Carlos presented to us. I believe Carlos wasn't at the like San Antonio ones and those, and I think that those did exactly that. I think they gave us a good idea of some good examples of clear guidelines that I'm sure that those municipalities took a long time and a lot of effort to do. So maybe we recirculate those so that people can just remind themselves of those examples. And then if you guys do find any other examples. But I think some of those, I know that San Antonio one sticks in my head very like significantly. I thought it was very clear and very well done. So I don't know if you guys have found other ones that you would like to distribute, but I know that those were helpful back when we talked about it many months ago.
Yeah, I'd forgotten that we shared some of those. Those are a good example just because they're relatively broad in their explanation of the different components, but they're also relatively brief, which I think is a nice example to try to follow. It's not this really lengthy document. It's really easy to navigate. It's a little more illustrative.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't know if Stuart was alluding to this, but I do think that short and sweet would be helpful in Evanston since a lot of our documents are very lengthy and in depth. I think it'd be good to give some homeowners that maybe aren't so used to the terminologies a document that's a little bit easier to navigate and something that helps send them a little bit on their way and points them in the right directions, as opposed to the stuff that is has the terminology that I think all of us professionals are more used to.
Mm-hmm. I think we're all for that type of document. I think this is very important for the commission to help us out to basically put out a document that the common citizen will be able to understand easy and help the architects to get to the best projects in terms of historic preservation. I definitely appreciate the fact that you don't want something that goes too long or it's confusing for the applicants. And we know that because we talk to the applicants, owners or architects or contractors every day during the week when they're trying to figure out what this means. And it's important that we can provide something that they can look at it and understand better what the intent of the ordinance is.
I think too, just one thing that pops in my mind as we go through these example or their agenda items, I think it'd be good to like have, like you mentioned, Carlos, some local examples of projects that have done certain things well. Maybe it relate to like a roof shape or something. I think if we can start keeping that in the back of our minds as we go through our agendas, if there are some success stories that we can kind of get approval from the owners or however that needs to work to integrate in and show how things have been done successfully, it might give people visual information that's also applauding Evanston homes that have done it. And it makes it a lot more of a local success and makes it, as you said, Carlos, more of our guidelines that are really driven by Evanston and Evanston residents.
We'll have to get our bad examples from Wilmette.
I was gonna say, get our bad examples from someplace else. Because we do have to kind of show,
Yeah.
this is great and don't do this, but we'll choose those from someplace else.
I think we're getting great ideas, and we appreciate your suggestions. So we're going to try to do our best to address those, and eventually, like I said, be proud owners of guidelines or whatever other terminology we can use at the end to impart with to share with the applicants. So, thank you.
Is long range work plan a different subject?
It is. I just wanted to touch on, I don't have anything to present. It's been a little bit more of a work in progress, but I did just want to update the commission that I sent out 2 separate prompts to the 3 members. The first was a kind of a visioning exercise, and it had some background on both kind of the goals and objectives, as well as why it's important. And that was completed, maybe 2 months ago, and we got some really excellent feedback. And then from that, I crafted a draft vision statement and some example kind of value statements that are currently under review. And then the hope is that next month I can at least share that vision statement with the rest of the body. And I don't have anything else.
Okay. Anything else? Nope. All right. Could we have a
Last
motion?
time, Mark.
Ready. I'm ready. Could we have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
A second. Second, Beth. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed. All right. See you next month. And Susie, you better be here and be ready.
Hey, Stuart, I expect help from you.
Oh, I've agreed to do the job if it was honorific. So be warned.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night. Thank
Well,
you. Thank you so much.